Welcome to Nerd Index. Today we're going to be talking about our history of video gaming, our favorite games, and games that we are looking forward to playing for the remainder of 2024. I have with me today my husband. Say hello.
Hello again.
So for me personally, I started on the Game Boy Advance, and the first video game that I was given was Pokemon Sapphire, but then quickly followed by Pokemon Emerald. And so I have a lot of nostalgia bias for Gen 3 and the Mudkip starter in particular. What about you?
Some of my earliest games that I played were F-Zero, Legend of the Ocarina of Time, Duck Hunt, Gauntlet Legends, a little bit of Tony Hawk, Pro Skater, kind of all the games.
You basically touched everything in your childhood, and I was given like the drip feed of games because I went from Pokemon Sapphire and Emerald to finally was allowed to upgrade to the Xbox 360, where I had Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and I had Test Drive Unlimited and Civilization Revolution, and that was the one that was like the only Civilization that I ended up enjoying. Basically, we're going to talk about the games that we have played together. So for our favorites since then, definitely the top game, in my opinion, is Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm not going to say that it's not biased for us because we like Japan and the culture and the history and everything like that, but it's also just genuinely a really good game. The story is very compelling. The character growth that also is intertwined with the gameplay choices of if you're going to follow your uncle's wants for your life or if you're going to go the sneaky route, and just the little bit of fighting that I did get to do, the combat actually felt really well tuned.
Yeah, the combat in that game flowed really well, and one of my favorite things was the kind of lack of a HUD. So instead of like big arrows pointing you like there's the next objective, you followed the wind and how the wind currents guided you around the place, and the little yellow birds would take you to other unique things.
It was so nice having nature guide the whole experience, and the little foxes and everything. So, and then the second game that we really enjoyed, which goes back to the bias of Japan, is Ghostwire Tokyo, and this was just really fun for me from the like yokai storytelling perspective or the legends, and I felt like all of the boss designs and enemy designs were just really cool. It is creepy, or it can be creepy, but it was so well done that I still enjoyed that, and the magic that you do as the main character as you're battling is really interesting.
Yeah, that was a fun one. It's one that I'd really love to revisit if anyone actually puts hand tracking into a VR port, because the hand gestures would be way too much fun to try and run around with.
I think that oh my gosh, like the lady with the big hat and the scissors coming at you in VR, that would be terrifying. But one of the levels that would be so cool in VR, it was the really big cat where you were hiding from it within like little rooms in the building and tunnels and stuff. It was also really nice that they put out their secondary game mode, which was like the roguelike through the city levels. We did play a lot of that, and it was a little punishing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely trying to come back like a year or so after playing the game.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there like, what am I actually supposed to be doing? What do these enemies do again? Like, what's the weaknesses and all that? So we didn't beat it for the secondary game mode, but it was a lot of fun. One of the games that I had mentioned from my gaming history, but that is still technically relevant, is Test Drive Unlimited. So I played so many hours of the first game. I had all the cars, I had all the houses, I had beaten all the races, and I just kept playing. It was one of those ones that I just loved it so much. And I played Test Drive Unlimited too, but it just didn't have the same, I guess, energy to me personally. So it wasn't that same level of obsession for my brain. So then one of the other things that we did play together was Hades. Together in the sense of, like, we literally took turns with the controller. It wasn't like you had one copy and I had another copy.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed like the challenge of obviously switching the weapons all the time and switching your boons and all those things, and the art style is just so beautiful, and everything that they did for when you're at home base again and how many people you can talk to and how all the storylines progress together was just really satisfying.
Yeah, it's one of the roguelikes that's kind of really given you the most story. I feel like that I've played.
It distracts you from being a roguelike. it rewards you enough every time that you don't feel like brought down by if your run was bad or not, because you still can go back and be like, oh, well, even though I was only out there for a little bit, someone might tell me something new.
Yeah, it was cool to kind of get a little bit more story every time you died.
Mm-hmm. So then we have V Rising, which is basically just pretending to be a vampire, trying to regrow your castle and your lands and take back over the area. And when this first release, was it the beta that we were playing, or was it legitimately just a first release?
The early access, yeah.
Okay, we played the early access, and I think we beat it in roughly 45 hours, playing just the two of us together on our own server.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. But then when they released the most recent update and it clears all your progress and you start from scratch, I just couldn't bring myself to redo it. So this time I watched you play it, and oh my goodness, the bosses at the end, I'm so glad I didn't have to deal with those.
They made the last two bosses a good step up harder.
Yeah, Adam and Dracula were just like, oh, no.
It was so fun.
It took you like 3 days to beat Adam. I was like losing my mind.
It felt so good to do it finally, though. Very much looking forward to the next patch on that game.
So we tried to play back through the older games, and we got to Unity, and it kept crashing on us, and we didn't like the characters, and we were just like, screw this crap. So basically, for us, the highlight from the franchise for Assassin's Creed is Syndicate. I personally really liked going back and forth as the siblings, the Fry twins, and getting to, you know, utilize their different play styles. And I think that, you know, I've always been partial to the Victorian, Edwardian, London landscape anyway, so that was also fun.
Yeah, Syndicate was a really good game. It felt like kind of what Assassin's Creed culminated into.
It was the last time that Assassin's Creed was itself, basically.
Yeah.
Because then, obviously, we've played Origin, and we've played Odyssey, and we've played Valhalla, and they're all just, they might as well not be Assassin's Creed to us so much anymore. They're just so open, and there's so many things for the sake of doing things, like stacking the stones, just because. And so it's been one of those things where we're falling off as players over time, but we could come back for Shadows, considering that people are trying to say that they're trying to bring the stealth back in, and they're trying to look at it from a perspective of what they've learned over the last 4 most recent games.
And it's the same sub-studio that did Syndicate and Odyssey.
That's right.
Which is kind of our better Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah, so there's slightly more hope. For games that we play regularly, like daily, weekly, we have League of Legends and Genshin Impact. So we start with League. You played it before I did. You've been there how long?
Since season 1.
Yeah. I don't remember my season number. I just remember the first champion that came out when I started playing was Vel'Koz. So you can date that however you want. But I started playing because I wanted an activity to be closer to you with, and that was kind of like one of the first official games that we played together. For me, my main role is probably unsurprisingly, because this is the cliche, support. And my favorite champion is Nami. Her kit is amazing. It's so well balanced. I love all of her crowd control. Her healing is beautiful. And obviously, like, her character herself is really pretty aesthetically and so much fun. And I really like basically every skin they put out for her. So I'm a huge Nami main. But I also secondarily main Yuumi. It's been interesting to kind of put us in a duo lane where I'm just playing Yuumi for we literally this season got gold together just for me playing Yuumi the entire time and you being my AD carry.
Which is a funny thing for me because I've been a jungler mid lane main since basically the beginning.
Right.
And AD carry was my worst role.
Yeah. So we're working on it.
So going and learning that has been a fun time.
How'd you feel about our progress to gold this season doing that.
It went pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, we did it last season too, technically.
Technically, yeah. I did get to play Nami a little bit more last season. This season was literally pure cat.
Yeah.
So who is your main?
Diana, probably, at this point.
Mm-hmm. You still feel that way?
Yeah.
Who would you say is your main for bot lane then, for more relevancy?
Misfortune's been feeling the best lately, but I always have liked Sivir.
Yeah. Sivir's so much fun and there's so much wave clear. It's just really satisfying.
Yeah. It's fun to just delete the waves and move on.
Yeah. But Diana's definitely, I know you're like always looking out for the skins, always looking to play the aggressive go in.
Yeah.
That's why like Arena is really fun because you'll play Diana and I'll play Yumi and we'll just like stomp. So for Genshin, we started playing, it's a year and a half ago now. It was the banner where Alhaitham first came out. And I literally started playing for him, to pull him. And he's still my favorite character, but I also really like Nouvelette. And I really like the Fontaine region the most. And I've been enjoying that, not from like the underwater perspective, because underwater combat sucks. I hate trying to find one of the little dudes to use to attack like seals and crap. It's not my favorite thing ever. But I like the region's overall design when you're not in the water. And like the water is pretty, but I don't want to be in it.
I'm a big fan of the local legends that they introduced with Fontaine.
Yeah.
It gives you kind of another kind of hard combat thing that's actually hard rather than just time gated, which is what they usually do for their combat.
Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite character to play? Is it still Yoimiya?
I think Yoimiya, maybe Chiori.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Chiori's so much
We've
fun.
got a really good team of Yoimiya, Yelan, Zhongli, and Chiori.
For the Abyss.
Yeah.
And then they just released, what are they calling it? The Imaginarium Theater?
Yeah.
How's that been?
It's been really cool. It's gives you a reason to build lots of characters, which I like.
Yeah, we're the kind of people that we go for the character pool over the constellations per each 5-star. Our general playstyle led us into having a better ability at doing that than a lot of other people that we saw online saying, like, I have, C6 so-and-so and I can't play this because I don't have enough variety. But it's been fun and it's been interesting to, be caught up with exactly where the game updates are and the Archon quests and everything, and kind of just waiting for more of that main underlying story to be revealed. Which Pokemon game was your first Pokemon game? You literally played one?
Yep, red and blue.
Oh, okay. So then, what Pokemon game was your favorite?
My favorite was probably black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of the whole world there, and I thought what they switched up with the Elite Four where you had to choose and do them in any order was actually really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The whole region was full of new Pokemon until you got past the end game.
Yeah.
So it felt like playing that first generation all over again.
That's really satisfying. I'm always in it mostly for the new Pokemon and filling out that part of the dex and learning about all of them again. And I think that the starters for black and white were really satisfying. Like, all of them were really good choices. And then the first Pokemon games that we played together was Sword and Shield, and that was, I played Sword and you played Shield. And I think that the experimentation that the Pokemon Company was doing there was still interesting, and obviously everyone complained about the glitchy trees and whatnot, but I still felt like it was something that was easy to overlook in the ability to still enjoy the game. I really enjoyed the final legendaries, the 2 dogs and the dragon type.
Eternatus?
Yes. So Sword and Shield was really fun for us, I think, as like the first Pokemon game that came out that we like intended to play together. Something that I watched you play, but we couldn't play together in the Pokemon series would be Arceus, or Arceus, whichever you prefer. I really liked that they made it so that you like leveled them by catching more of that same species.
It's the first kind of Pokemon game where it felt like it really hit the motto of gotta catch them all.
Yeah, it was really fun actually having to go out and reach certain milestones and not necessarily be worrying about building a specific team all of the time.
Yeah, and that the Pokedex was actually like
interactive,
a research task rather than just, oh, I've seen the Pokemon, moving on.
Yeah. So we have a couple games that I just completely was backseating, and you were at the controls. For example, with Stray, the very adorable but slightly sad cat game.
Meow.
And platforming and puzzle solving and all those kinds of things. It was such a mood.
Any game that has a meow button, I'm sold.
Yeah. Oh, and the little backpack and the little robot and just everything.
It was a very cute game and very fun story.
So that was one where we finished it, and you could definitely understand why everybody kept wanting to like replay it and why everyone was talking about it. It was just as good as the hype, basically.
Yeah, if you want another game with a meow button, Little Kitty Big City was also really fun.
It's just shenanigans trying to get back to your house and property destruction.
At the true being a cat game.
Yeah, Little Kitty Big City is the cat goose game, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
And then you played, and I watched you play Sifu, and I definitely would never have gotten through that one by myself. I don't have the ability to smack my head into a wall that hard.
There's a small trend of me liking kind of hard games. Sifu, I was intrigued when they first showed off the trailer of, I think it was like a bar fight or the fight in the club, where you're just seamlessly picking up and interacting with the environment, items, and the fight feels like a fighting movie. Or like kung fu movie.
Yeah, so like even though the story was a really low key element, and there wasn't a lot of it, it was still so dynamic, and it really like brought you through wanting to care about the main character that you were playing. And the aesthetics were so beautiful, especially the entire sequence of going to the museum and fighting her.
Yeah, the museum level was definitely my favorite level. One of the better bosses too. And then the kind of twist at the end where you're like going on the path of redemption of, now I've got to redo it, but I want to spare all the bosses.
Then we played Sekiro, and that for me, I don't super enjoy watching the grungy games, the grungy looking games, and From Software games are just also grungy. Sekiro was really fun to watch because every boss was like very unique in my opinion. Madame Butterfly and the like monkey and with the very disgusting.
Oh, the monkey
centipede.
with the centipede? Yeah.
That
one is such a troll. Shinobi defeated, and then it just stands back up and the centipede pops out and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. So there was a lot of stuff in there that it made it feel really unique to me personally, especially since, I mean, like, prior to Sekiro, I didn't play, like, any of the Souls games.
And I liked it because they designed a linear experience where you're like, I know I should be able to beat these because I've gotten here.
Yeah.
On all the bosses.
Yeah.
So it's not like Elden Ring or some of the other games where you're like, I'm fighting this boss, but am I fighting it too soon, or...
Yeah, like, what's the problem here?
Yeah, or am I just bad?
So then we played Plague Tale. We played the first one and the second one, and Plague Tale was one of those where I went in apprehensively because her kid brother was pretty obnoxious. I'm not gonna lie. Even in the, like, game beginning, from what I remember, she found her own brother highly obnoxious and was not really looking forward to having to take care of him herself. But the storytelling was still really good, and you know, the waves of rats coming at you is genuinely, like, if you look at it from the perspective of if you were playing VR or if you were the characters, it's just like terrifying to think about being eaten. But yeah, with Plague Tale, the second one, I felt like it really maintained itself. It didn't feel like a departure or a disappointment or anything. It was just more satisfying gameplay.
Yeah, I really like the Plague Tale games because it's one of the few games where you're not playing as an overpowered main character that just kills everyone.
Yeah.
You've got to actually think about
positioning
and strategy of, like, I need to go from here to there, and how am I gonna get there?
Can I afford to use my slingshot right now, or will that get us killed?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. There was a lot of problem solving And we played Judgment last year. So we tried first to play the main core Yakuza games before arriving at Judgment, but it was just something that was like I wanted to start from the very first one so that we could watch the story progress properly, but I just could not get into it, and it was like a mix of the games being so old now and the main character just really not clicking with me that I just couldn't do it. But then we got to Judgment and I was like, I actually really like this guy. I like being a detective. I like, exploring in a more directed fashion. I don't remember exactly which game it was that we gave up on the Yakuza series, but it was the one where like you spent an hour in a flashback to go buy a ring, and I was sat there and I'm like, we're never gonna do anything.
Yeah, a lot of the, at least entry point Yakuza games tend to have really, really, really long intro sections, and so it's a little rough to get into them.
Yeah. But Judgment we got into, we really liked it. It was like watching a movie so many times. It was so good, and the soundtrack was really good, especially like the final credit songs and stuff. And we are so close to 100%ing, except the stinking Mahjong lady, because neither one of us knows how to play. And we haven't learned, and we're not sure we're like willing to take the time to deal with learning how to beat that part of the game for that lady, or like trying to grind enough points to go buy the OP tile from the sewer man. I don't think we'll ever 100%, but I wish we could have. That would have been nice. We were so close. We have lost Judgment, but we haven't gotten to it yet. We've been trying to focus a little bit more this year on getting through our backlog in general before we get to purchasing any new games. But the games that we are looking forward to for 2024 are starting with Elden Ring, the DLC. I know it's out already, but because we were finishing watching the anime spring season, we did not get to it when everybody else did.
Also have 2 summer events for both League of Legends and Genshin.
Yeah, we have the Anima Squad Swarm event happening right now that should be about a month, and then we have the Genshin summer yearly shenanigans that is also probably, I think it was until like August 20th or something. So that's all keeping us rather busy, but as soon as those timelines or those goals are met, then we will go to Elden Ring DLC and finally see if the new bosses are just as hard as everybody says they are. We're also planning to play Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown when that comes out in September. I played the demo and they seem to have brought a lot of the same energy as Test Drive 2, not Test Drive 1. And they are also openly trying to make this more of a multiplayer scenario, always online kind of crap and they took the houses away, and there's so much of the like kind of role-playing element that hooked my brain in the first one that they're just taking and putting in the trash. And the cars that we did get to play in the demo, we only drove 3 of them, and they all handled differently, which was really good. It seems like they are trying to maintain the reputation that they have for making each car feel individual and satisfying and have its own purpose. So I am hopeful, but I'm also a little bit pessimistic about the multiplayer stuff. And then you are looking forward to Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a solid 2D Zelda again. With dungeons and actual puzzle solving. So I've been a little sad about the open worldness of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
And then we're gonna play Hades 2, most likely when the entire thing is released, because I know that they have a portion of it out right now. But I just feel like from our experiences with previous games where we would have to put it down and then pick it back up in like 6 months to a year and then put it back down again and then pick it back up, that we don't retain as much of like the muscle memory and the controls and everything as we would like. And I just feel like it would be nicer to flow the story together, because the first one definitely still had story to it, so this should also hopefully have story to it. So that's going to be something that we just look out for or keep monitoring until they release the end portion of the game. So you probably in the future see videos from us talking about our impressions of those games that we're planning to play for 2024. So if you are interested in any of those, you should stick around.